Hello guys, how are you? Thanks very much for joining me. A bit short notice, to be fair, that I was going to do this live. It was my birthday yesterday, so if I'm looking a bit ragged, please excuse me. It's a good job, I suppose, that I work with the deceased, because they didn't notice that I looked so ragged this morning when I had a hangover that would kill a socialist. So thanks to everybody that sent me birthday wishes yesterday or born day wishes yesterday. You may ask what born day is all about. Well, that's the day I was born. So that's really what you're celebrating when it's your birthday. Birthday really belongs to your mum, because she's the one that gave birth to you. So really, she should get the congratulations. And if it's a mum like mine, she's got 5 kids, she has 5 birthdays plus her own. So it all becomes a little bit confusing. So it's born day is really official. That's Old English. That's common law. And you'll see if you go into court, if you're a bit naughty every now and again, like I've been known to, then they always say, can I confirm that you were born on the 20th day of February 1965? They don't say your birthday, you were born on. So that's where that comes from. But thanks to everybody for all those very, very kind messages. It was quite overwhelming, to be honest. And I spent yesterday evening in between sort of drinking Guinness and Irish whiskey, thanking people and adding emojis, etc. So why have I asked you to come on my live today? Well, I think it's all about the disappointment that we're all feeling at the moment. It's an unscripted thing, this. I have made notes and I have to put my binoculars on to see. But it's the disappointment, I think, that we're all feeling at this moment in time. Not just throughout the UK, but perhaps, worldwide. I was chatting to people in Canada and the United States yesterday, France, Belgium, Holland. They're all feeling pretty much the same. Even Australia, who's got a grip of their immigrant situation, let's say, even they're feeling the pinch. And the same with New Zealand. And I'm just thankful, really, that we've got such good leadership throughout all those countries. You've got Lucinda Ahern over there. We've got Fishy Rishi here. We've got Joe Biden in the States. We've got Trudeau over in. We're blessed, aren't we? Really, with the amount of quality leadership that we've got running our world at this current moment in time. Now, this video is probably being monitored by 77 Brigade, and you would have probably heard 77 Brigade on some of the UK news networks over the last few days. I highlighted 77 Brigade in a video in 2020 because they were hounding me. They were blocking my emails. They interfered with the live stream where they cut my camera off, but silly sods left me mic running, so I just continued to speak, even though you couldn't see me, which was probably a bonus anyway. But 77 Brigade is being used now against the people. It shouldn't be used against the people. It's there to safeguard us against the people that may wish to infiltrate this, hopefully soon again to be a great nation. But they didn't do that. They used it against the people during that flu outbreak. So it's worthy of note that Tobias Elwood, who's one of our members of parliament, who served some military time, regular army as an officer, reached the rank of captain. He then joined the reservists. Since 2020, he's been let me just check here, the chairman of the Defence Select Committee. Well, he's also a colonel in 77 Brigade. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that is a little bit of a contradiction. It's it goes against the nub, let's say, because he's making policy for 77 Brigade by being a chairman of the Defence Select Committee, and he's a member of 77 Brigade. So he's really dictating what they should and should be doing. And it's probably him to thank, that we've got to thank, for all the spying that's been done over the last 2 or 3 years or so. And is probably still going on, even though they said, no, we're not doing that anymore. So a bit of a conflict of interest there, I think, Mr. Tobias Elwood. Now, the boat situation down on the south coast and the east coast of England hasn't improved. There's lots of really good patriots out on the ground. You've got the little veteran plus others banging away, getting arrested almost on a day-to-day basis to bring us information. I haven't been down there, to be fair. I should have been, probably, but my head wasn't in a good place for the last sort of 18 months, so which is why I went dark on social media. But the boat situation hasn't improved, and I think we all know that. And we know that these refugees are now moving into hotels. These hotels are costing upward of 7 million a day to keep them in. They're also getting smartphones. They're also receiving pocket money, 3 square meals a day, etc. So they're in a damn sight better place than a lot of people that reside here, were born here, and have families here. So something's got to be done about it. I heard on the news yesterday that they're now considering new build houses. This is the local councils throughout the UK are looking at new build houses now for refugees from Afghanistan and the Ukraine. Well, the Ukraine is a proxy war anyway, because everyone's supplying ammunition and weapon systems to the Ukraine so that they can fight the Russians basically on our behalf. So it's a proxy war. Again, I covered that in a video 2 or 3 years ago, what proxy war is. I'll do another one and update it, because it can be quite interesting if you're interested. Everything's interesting, isn't it, if you're interested? So but refugees in these houses, I think, is a slippery slope, because if they're just saying it's Ukraine and Afghanistan now, well, fair enough. They're going to move on at some stage. But what about all the other refugees that are coming over in the boat? They'll no doubt be moving into these houses as well. And I know of a few landlords. My landlord, who I rent this place from, has said that he's been approached to see if he's got any properties that he would be willing to lease to the government to house refugees. You can imagine what his answer was. It was a big resounding no chance. So good for Michael. If they're able to build these houses on brownfield sites, etc., convert car parks now as well into perhaps housing developments, why can't they do that for our own homeless population? The homeless population that's out there on the street, dying of natural causes, normally through malnutrition and hypothermia during the wintertime, but also they're committing suicide because they're at such a desperate stage in their life they don't know which way to turn. And it doesn't matter who they ask, they never get the answer that they deserve. So this is something that we have to work on as a public, because at the end of the day, we're sovereign and we employ that share of shit in the Houses of Parliament, and we should be directing where they go, what they do, etc. It's not up to them at the end of the day. They sign off on policy, but that policy should be open to us to see prior to them going forward with it. And that flu was just an example of that. How many laws they passed? Hundreds, thousands of laws. And it's all wrong, because we bear the brunt from our employer or our employee. And it should be the other way around, shouldn't it? I think. Right, that leads me on now to staycations. Everyone's saying don't go away on holiday because you'll not get a flight. You may as well just vacation holiday here in the UK. Well, that's fine. That sounds good. And there's some great places to visit here in the UK. But where the hell do you stay? Because I visited my daughter recently, and I normally like staying in Premier Inns because they're clean, they're easy, they're relatively cheap, easy to find. There's 4 in Kingston upon Hull, where my daughter lives. 1 was available because the other 3 full of refugees. Don't figure. You know, what's going on? If you want a staycation here in the UK, good luck with that, because I think it's going to be, you know, enough kit to last you 2 or 3 nights and your tent, and that's about it. But there's restrictions on where you can stay. You can't go wild camping like in the old days, even though I and others do. You shouldn't do it because it's, you know, it's naughty. The government says it's naughty. But that's your only option now, is to camp. And not everybody wants to go camping. A lot of kids don't like it. A lot of the women don't like it. A lot of the blokes don't like it. You know, you want a comfortable surrounding. You want a hotel. You want to be waited on hand, foot and finger. You want your food in the morning at breakfast time. You want a dinner time meal and a tea time meal. Or if you're from further down south, you want a lunchtime meal and a dinner in the evening. You know, it's all wrong, isn't it? Right. Statues and monuments. Statues and monuments came up with me on a live about 2 years ago as well. And when the Black Lives Matter movement was going strong and they were busy destroying, pulling down, defacing our monuments and statues, a lot of the veterans travelled down to London to protect the cenotaph, Winston Churchill, etc. Now, that didn't stop little socialist twats climbing up on the cenotaph and burning the flags, or trying to burn the flags with a lighter, a disposable lighter. All those flags are treated with flambar, so they're fire resistant. A lighter isn't going to really cut it, you know. But there you go. If they're arrested, the most they're going to get is 3 months behind bars. And we know what prison's like in England. It's holiday camp. Perhaps that's where you should have your staycation. They've now just passed a bill. It's called the Desecration of Memorials Bill. And it's increased the 3-month maximum sentence to 10 years. So that's worth knowing now. So we can tell these little twats when they're climbing up on our monuments and statues that, you know, the maximum now is 10 years, not 3 months. So maybe that will stop them doing it. But that said, local councils are now deciding what statues should stay and what statues shouldn't, which statues portray us in a good light and which ones portray us as warmongers and slave owners. And included in all that is the cenotaph in Whitehall that's been there since just after the Great War, which ended, 2014, 2018. Then the cenotaph went up. The tomb of the unknown soldier was installed into Westminster Abbey. And we've been holding cenotaph parades there every year since. They've also said that the Sir Robert Peel statue is under threat. And Sir Robert Peel is the founder of the modern police force, even though he'll be spinning in his grave looking at it and the state it's in today. Sir Winston Churchill, arguably the greatest ever Briton, got us through World War II without a shadow of a doubt. That's why he was put on planet Earth, to get us through that 4 or 5 years. Not so much good as a peacetime politician, but then, that's just the way it is, isn't it? And Admiral Nelson, who fought off the French and fought off the Spanish. England expects every man to do his duty, was one of his famous sayings. Well, now his statue is under threat. How can that be? We've got 3 people that have become synonymous throughout the entire world as heroic men in their own right. But local councils now saying, oh, we don't know if we should have that anymore. Perhaps we should take it down. And one of the worst for that is that but Sadiq Khan, the greedy rat, sitting down there in the smoke in London. He needs to be put out. We've got to do something about that. What else have I got to say? Oh, yeah, veterans went down there to look after those monuments 2 or 3 years ago, and they got an absolute slating. Because some veterans can be fickle, because veterans come from different backgrounds. You've got working class, middle class, upper class, guards, officers, things like that. But they've also sort of vote for different parties, things like that. You have some that are quite liberal, some vote left wing, some vote right wing. So veterans can be a little bit fickle in what they support and what they don't support. And I've found that out the hard way with the abuse that I've received from some veterans over the last sort of 6 or 7 years. But that's by the by, it's water under the bridge, and I'm big enough to sort of deal with that. Yeah, that's why I got slopey shoulders. All the problems just sort of fall off. So, I'm not sort of too bothered about that. But they were getting slated by the police. They were getting slated by the public. And yet they were protecting our monuments and statues from the far left Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And we all saw on the news all the staged aggravation that was on there. It was all bollocks, as always. It's all a distraction, is what I'm trying to say. Right, sad news now. Nicola Bulley obviously went missing 3 weeks ago in Lancashire. A body was found in the River Wyre a couple of days ago. It's been identified as being Nicola Bulley. I have to be critical of the police here, because the police have basically slated her private life in an attempt to make her sound more vulnerable, and perhaps for people to speak up and say, oh, well, I actually saw her down the high street, or, oh, yeah, I saw her jump in that river, or I saw her fall in that river, or whatever it was. So in their quest for more information, they've divulged personal information about her and her family, which they should never have done. And no doubt there's going to be an investigation, but heads need to roll for that, because that was absolutely disgusting behaviour. In addition to that, when Nicola's body was found, and they put out a statement asking for any contact to be made through the police, who by and large did do a good job for this past 3 weeks, apart from that bit at the end. The BBC, the Biased Broadcasting Corporation, and ITV, Independent Television News, contact the family direct. Now, if something isn't done, I know the Ombudsman has now approached them, but if something isn't done in a serious way with regard to the BBC and ITV, with regard that insensitive contact to Nicola Bulley's family, then, again, there's something drastically wrong. And we already know that the mainstream media is biased up to the hill. And anybody that's awake doesn't take any notice of the mainstream media. You're better off going to other sources on on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or GB News, who tends to say it as it is. Not always, but most of the time. But my sympathy goes out to Nicola Bulley's family, especially those two young girls. So what are we going to do about this? It's time to speak up. It's time for us, the public, to be heard. We've got to be noisy. We can't just say, well, yeah, all right, we'll go and have a little protest somewhere. Doesn't work. If you have several protests all going on at the same time and they're spread all over the country, that works. Because we did that with the BBC, if you remember right, back in 2018, I think that was. That worked. That was good because we hit 10 different areas all at the same time. And we need to do that again over all these issues and more, including that ULEZ, the ultra low emission zone bollocks, the 15-minute CEs, this, all that sort of thing needs to be dealt with. It all needs to be nipped in the bud now because we're just heading down a utopian highway. When I was born on my council estate in Southampton back in '65, as a teenager, it used to take me more than half an hour to walk from one end of that housing estate to the other because it was so vast. So how's a 15-minute city going to work? Do they slice the housing estate in half and say you can't go there apart from 100 times a year and then you start paying a bill? It's ridiculous. We already know they're taking away car parks and building on them to try and cut down on our use of our private vehicles and use public transport. And where's all the public transport? Oh, it's on strike because they want more money. Especially train drivers. How difficult is it to drive a train? You jump in the thing, you push a couple of buttons and off it goes. There's no steering wheel. You haven't got any pedals or gear sticks to work and it goes more or less in a fucking straight line. All you have to do is apply a brake. And if you forget to do that and you run a red signal, it does it for you. So why do they need all this money? Get a robot in there. Use AI or whatever you bloody call it just to drive a train. Because they certainly don't deserve a pay rise. Not when we've got other people in this country that do deserve one. Including our NHS, even though I sort of disagree with it a little bit. But I'm more sympathetic to them than I am a train driver. There's no skill involved in that. Not anymore. Steam trains are gone. They're electric trains now, or diesel at worst. So we need to do something. I've got a couple of meetings in London at the weekend. So I'm going to be jumping on a train, provided it's not cancelled. If it is, I'll drive my car all the way down into Sadiq Khan's little bitty nest egg. But a couple of meetings with regard this. Can't tell you too much about it until it's all ratified, and then we'll release some information on that. But what I would say, just in summary, is be very careful who you trust, because you can divulge some information to person A, and then that person A, who's supposed to know this information in confidence, then goes to spread it to person B, C, D, and E, and before you know it, the whole story's been twisted. And it's that age-old thing of Chinese whispers, where the first whisper was send reinforcements because we're going to advance. But by the time it gets to the last man, it's send 3 and 4pence, we're going to a dance. You know, we got to do away with these Chinese whispers. So be careful who you trust. And I noticed I'm getting a lot of friend requests at the moment on Facebook, and I don't know any of them. And I'm trying to vet them as best I can and seeing where their mutual friends are, and then deciding whether that mutual friend is somebody who can be trusted enough to do correct vetting. And if they are, I'll accept them. If they're not, I'll just delete them off again. So be very careful. Don't believe everything you see and don't believe everything you hear, because a lot of what goes on at the moment is definitely a distraction, and we need to be aware of that distraction and go for the facts. And the best way of gathering the facts is just a small group of trusted friends and gather the facts for yourself, because they're out there. Because this is all a game, you know. The whole thing is a game. You can watch a couple of movies on Netflix that were made 10 years ago, and they're basically predicting what's happening now, because they have to tell you it's all part of this big game. So do some research, get on DuckDuckGo and find out some answers, or any other good browser that you can trust. Look after yourself and look after the ones you love. Most important. Most important. And my final point on that is stand, fight, and protect. And then deal with the questions later. Don't dither and dally and say, that bloke's harassing my daughter. I won't say anything because I'll get in trouble. Bollocks to getting into trouble. You go and protect your daughter and then worry about asking the questions or answering the questions when the event is cleared up. And we know this is going on. We've got all these refugees piling in around the country, and who are they preying on? Underage girls, lone women in cars, etc. So when you're traveling in your car, batten down the hatches. Make sure all your doors are locked, because it won't take much for one to walk straight up, open your door and sit in beside you, or threaten you, or chat you up, because they can get away with that in their country, because that's the way they do things. But it's not the way we do things here in the United Kingdom. And it's not the way things are done anywhere in the Western world. Australia, New Zealand, United States, Canada, we're all good people and we look after one another, and we've got to do it more, and we've got to make a point of doing it more, or we're going to end up with tragedies. And there's enough people in tragedy at the moment as it is. What with knife-ins, gun crime, everything can be linked into immigration, and we have to do something about it. We have to nip it in the bud, and we have to do it now, not wait. Now. We have to do it now. And if that gets us into trouble, so be it. Not the first time, is it? I've been in trouble loads of times. I had 12 days in Winchester prison. It was all right, actually. It's quite nice. 23 hours doing absolutely nothing, and then going out, get your bit of lunch, coming back to your cell, watching the telly, play a game or two. Not that I'm very good at that, but, you know, sounds all right, doesn't it? Maybe that's part of the utopia. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say, really. Thanks very much for watching. I can see all the comments flying down there, but I can't see them. But I will answer them afterwards. I'll start ploughing through them and answer those comments. If you want me to do a regular live once a week, let me know and I'll do it. If you don't want me to do it, then I'll not bother. And I'll just continue banging a video out, one video a week, something like that. But if you want me to do lives in addition to video only, whatever, just let me know, and then I can make time and crack on with it. In the meantime, love you all loads. If you need anything, my email's on there. Look, Proton Mail. You get me on my Facebook Messenger. Not that I'm a big fan, and I tend to only use it mainly off my laptop, not my phone. You get me YouTube, Maverick Veteran, and you can get me maverick.veteran@protonmail.com. So loads of ways of getting hold of me. Some of you got my phone number as well. If you want my phone number, I'll give it to you. Just ping me an email and I'll ping it to you. So if you're in need, phone me, all right? Don't suffer in silence, all right? Learn from the master. I did all that. I went dark and hid. Did it for years. And then ended up 4 years on the circuit, trying to get my head straight. It's straight now, ish. So give me a bell. Don't suffer in silence, okay? Love you all loads. This call sign is